Take up your cross and follow me. Follow me, follow me, follow me.
What's it mean to follow Jesus? A while back, I met a good old boy down in Jackson, Mississippi. His name was Jonathan. Jonathan's an outdoorsman and a hunter, and he spends a lot of time in the Delta Flyway. Jonathan introduced me to his prize hunting dog, a golden Labrador retriever, a beautiful dog. Her name was Mally. Now, Mally's not your average hunting dog. At the age of 3, she was a national grand champion retriever. At age 4, she was a master hunter retriever. And Jonathan gave me an incredible gift. He took me out to a huge field to demonstrate the connection between Mally and her master. All over the field, he'd put these little remote launches, these things that throw rubber duck decoys into the air whenever he hit a button on a remote control. And to show me what Mally could do, he first said, "Mally, find your mark." And that dog got right down beside him, cocked and loaded, every muscle tense, but totally unmoving. And then he fired the first launch, and that decoy went flying into the air about 200 yards away from us. The dog flinched but didn't move. He said her name, Mally. And like a bullet from a gun, she was gone. Every muscle straining, full speed, in obedience after that decoy. She found it, got it in her mouth, and came flying back. And as soon as she got back and dropped it at his feet, he said, "Find your mark." And immediately she was like a sprinter down in the blocks, ready to go again. He fired another decoy, this time in a different direction. He said, "Mally." Again, she was gone. This went on for the next 15, maybe 20 minutes. The dog working so hard in all different directions, all over that field, chasing these decoys down. There was a couple of them that were out of her sight. I could barely see them myself. Jonathan knew where they were. And the dog would take off in a direction, and after about 100 yards, he'd blow a whistle, and that dog would slam on the brakes, turn around and look at him. And with a simple hand motion, Jonathan would direct her left or right or further on. And immediately she would wheel around and be gone. She'd find that decoy with his help, with a little hand signal. She'd come flying back. Mally was so eager to please, panting for breath. She was focused on obeying her master, Jonathan. Following Jesus means obedience. Absolute, complete, blind obedience. He's not asking for a big conversation. It's not about picking apart the context and did he really mean that? It's not obeying the bare minimum so we can just get by. Following Jesus, obeying him, is a passionate desire to please the master. It's living for that pat on the head, or what Scripture says, "Well done, good and faithful servant." You see, many so-called Christians don't want to follow Jesus because it means giving up control. And following Jesus will cost you. It will change you and challenge you. In 1 Corinthians chapter 6, it says, "You are not your own. You were bought with a price." Now, maybe you think it's harsh to say that we must obey Jesus like a dog. Well, that may be so, but maybe if you have a hard time with that, you're probably too full of yourself or full of pride to follow him anyways. See, I'd be happy to be called Jesus' lapdog. Near the end of Jonathan's demonstration, he showed us one more thing. There were several of us watching, and he asked us to participate. He said, after she takes her mark, I want you to all say a name. Say any name you want, but don't say Mally. So after she took her mark, we started shouting out different names. Molly, Polly, Mary, Sally. The dog didn't move. In the midst of all these voices calling out different names, Jonathan, almost in a whisper, said, Mally. And that dog heard it and responded and immediately was gone again in obedience. Jesus said, my sheep listen to my voice. I know them and they follow me. So how do we live a life of obedience to our Master Jesus? How do we become as obedient as Mally? I asked Jonathan that question because at my home, I've got 2 unruly Aussie shepherds that I can barely control. If I can just get them to sit and stop chewing on everyone's shoes, that's a good day. I said, John, how did you do this? How did you train that dog? His answer was simple. He said, time. Hours and hours of time. To be marked as a disciple of Jesus, you must follow him. You must completely lay down your life in obedience to him. You must respond instantly to his voice, and you must know what his voice sounds like. That can only come by spending time, hours, days, and years with the Master.